And we'll probably start with you, Joe, doing this, the Suffolk County Water Authority report, and we'll do our minutes perhaps at the end of the meeting. We'll go over our minutes because there are some outstanding items that we have to address on there. So how are you, Joe?
You know what? I'm good, but I'm having trouble with my speakers. Can you just hold on? I have to get up and close my door.
Okay. And meanwhile, can you look over the minutes?
Well, I did. It's online.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just, okay.
Hi there.
Good morning, afternoon.
Oh, good
How are you?
afternoon. Yeah. How are you?
We're all good. There's two bodies here, plus our liaisons, and then an official quorum has been met because Donna's joining us online.
Right.
Okay, so Joe, I had outlined some things on the agenda, specifics. So I don't know if you want to go through them item by item for your report, or if you want to make your report and then we can touch on them as we go through.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe I can give you what I felt was important, and then if you have some other questions, we can talk about those things.
Okay.
So a couple of things. We've made some good progress, I think, since our last meeting. The first progress is, as you know, I mean, the last time we spoke, I think we had changed out the meters already. And the meters that we put in were, hello, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Those were the drive-by Itron meters that we use in the rest of our service territory. And that's how we've been, we actually did our first reads on your meters. And as you may recall, I had told you that we had really planned on putting in meters that were readable from a remote location using cellular technology from the get-go, but that those meters were in short supply due to COVID and supply chain stuff that the vendor keeps telling us about. So we went forward with installing the drive-bys, thinking we weren't going to get those for some time. And then as luck or whatever bad planning would have it, not long after we put the meters in, we received word that they were shipping what are called these 500Ws, which are meters that are readable using the cellular system. So we got them. And it was probably about a month ago. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but we went out there, and it really only took us a couple of days to do, but we converted all the meters to wireless cellular meters.
Yeah.
So that's all done now, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means now is that we can read the meters continuously, almost continuously. I think they're read every hour or every 2 or 3 hours, depending on how we set them up.
That's terrific.
So that's being done. The next adventure, as I might call it, is giving the customers the ability to get onto a portal and read take a look at their water consumption. And I won't say live, but as frequently as the meters report back, that consumption data will be available to the customers.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be available because we're still developing that portal. These meters are brand new to us, and you guys are the first ones to receive them. So you and Daring Harbor, we converted Daring Harbors over also. And that IT work to make this portal available to the customer and for there to be a way for the customer to access it and use their account number to get their data, it's still under design right now. So I'm hopeful that'll be done soon. But again, we have so much IT work that our computer people do that it's on the list of things to do. I just don't have the date when that would be available. We're also doing this on Fire Island, just so you know. So there are 4,000 customers on Fire Island that have these type of meters also. So it's not like we're just waiting to do it for 200 customers on Shelter Island. There are 4,000 more on Fire Island that we're doing them for. So it should be sooner than later. I would hope that it'd be within a few months or so, that you'll be able to access your meter readings online. But, you know, when I have better information on that, I'll let you know.
Yeah, because last time we met, we had talked about having monthly reads of the meters.
Yeah,
So because it would be good to see, you'd be able to pick up leaks much quicker than
Right.
having a quarterly.
right.
And we did say that from November on, we would have monthly reads, but I don't think that has happened, correct?
Correct. But they are happening. Well, now they'll happen even more frequently than monthly.
Right.
But yes, you're correct. I think they were changed out. Where we were at the beginning of February already. I think it was right around the holidays that Mike was out there swapping the heads out on the meters.
Yeah, yeah, I spoke with him as he was doing it.
Oh, okay, good.
Um,
I didn't realize you knew.
So then the monthly reads is redundant now, or it's not going to happen? It's not
Well,
necessary to happen, but go ahead.
It's not going to change anything with your bills. You're still going to get quarterly bills. You know, we're not going to monthly billing or anything like that. You'll
No,
still
it was
get
just for
quarterly bills.
reading. It was just for people to be able to see if they have a leak.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, again, I'm not the meter expert here, but I believe that when there is a leak, because the meters still are able to detect the leak. But as you may recall, we didn't find out about the leak until we drove by the next quarter to read the meters
That's right.
that there was a leak. So I believe that the way these work now is that the leaks will continuously be monitored and they'll be flagged when they show up. So
In
at
real
the very
time.
least, the customer will when they look on the portal, they'll be able to see if there's a leak flag. But I believe the way it's going to work is that when a leak flag is set, we're going to get a notification and then we're going to reach out to the customer and let them know that there's a leak.
And what would the time frame be for that process?
You know, Lisa, this is all brand new. So I don't know what, you know, we're going to have to find out how the technology works and how, you know, we're going to handle rolling it out.
All right, okay.
You know, the idea would be obviously to make it much faster than quarterly, and more like, you know, within a few days after we see a flag, we're going to reach out to the customers.
And obviously this time of year, it's not a necessity because, you know, our restaurants are closed. But starting April, it will be.
Yeah, right. But if you have a leak, you still want to know about it, right?
Yeah. But when the pressure's up and there's more water being pumped, it would be great to have that up and going.
Yes, absolutely. This is going to be very, very big. You know, I mean, it's going to allow us to even more closely monitor water consumption and lost and unaccounted for water, etc., in the system.
Great.
We just have a much better handle on consumption.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing all that to completion.
Yeah, I apologize. Like I said, it's brand new. We still have to, you know, develop the whole program for how it gets rolled out and how we communicate this to the customers. But we will do that.
Okay.
Okay. So the other issue is the replacement wells over on the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as Joe knows, we've gone and we've staked out the locations for the replacement wells. We've received what's called notice of complete application from the Department of Environmental Conservation. And what that means is they're on the verge of issuing a permit for those wells. So we should have those hopefully within another couple of weeks. We've already made plans with the well driller to head out there and you know, mobilize and start drilling the wells in anticipation of receipt of the permits. I think we're figuring that the entire well drilling process and pump installation process is probably 2 to 3 months long. Hopefully it's a little shorter than 2 months, and maybe it's going to be closer to 2. We have infrastructure that has to go in besides that. So we're going to be running wires across Shore Road there to get out to the wells. We'll be upgrading the electric service at the building, at the pump station building. And what's going to happen now is everything is going to be fed out of the pump station building, and the electric service that's on the golf course will be demolished and removed, because that has presented problems for us in operating these wells remotely. You know, that's what we want, is complete operation from a remote location. If something goes wrong right now, if well 5 or well 6 fails in the middle of the night, we have to send somebody out there to throw a manual switch to switch between the electric supply, because the electric supply out there is only capable of powering one pump at a time. So what will happen is, when this is all powered from one supply over at the pump station, we'll just have basically switches that switch each well on and off, and they'll be able to, we'll be able to, we call it rotating pumps. We'll be able to do that from a remote location. And the real benefit is, if we have big demand of some kind, we can run both pumps simultaneously. We couldn't do that before.
Well, our well capacity is that much greater, correct?
Well, the capacity is going to be, yeah, much
100?
greater. Yeah. So this is the second part of the improvements to the system. The first was the distribution system replacement. But this is the second part, and this is the part that really beefs up the water system.
Just to sort of bring everybody up to speed as to this replacement process, wells 5 and 6 are going to be utilized, but they're having new pumping ability. Is that correct? Or are you citing wells 5 and 6?
So what we discovered, and shame on us for maybe not doing more homework when we reviewed your system, but those wells over there, 5 and 6, were really designed and installed as monitor wells. So they're really they're not robustly constructed. They're not made with good materials, and most importantly, they're not grouted wells, which means when they put them in, they basically just backfilled with dirt around the casings of the wells when they were drilled. We don't construct wells like that. When we construct a well, we backfill with concrete, and the entire casing of the well is then sealed up against the ground around it. With dirt, things can get in around the casing of the well. You could have something going on the surface that will migrate down to the screen of the well much more easily than with a concrete cased well. And you can see this if you go up to any of the casings of the 2 wells over there on the golf course. If you grab them and shake them, you can actually move the casing. It's really, it's not very well constructed. So you may remember, originally in our original proposal to you folks was, we were going to add a well. We were going to keep those 2 wells. We were going to add a well.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the benefit that you were going to get from your capital investment. Well, what we're doing is we're replacing the 2 wells instead. But we're increasing the capacity of the wells. So you're going to have actually more capacity than we originally proposed to have in the system, because the 2 new wells will be 100 gallons a minute. So you'll have the extra capacity. You'll have what I'll call, utility grade wells. So it's like a win-win. Of course, then there's the grant that came along to pay for a lot of this, or most of it. So it really is you're winding up with something even better than what we had originally proposed.
And so just quickly, the sites, have they changed geographically?
No, there's one that's, of the 2 new ones, there's one that will fall in between the 2 existing ones, and they're only a few feet apart in the first place. And then the second one is just a little bit further up the golf course, I guess across that side of the same hole, in the wooded area. Ken Lewis and I went and checked the area, and certainly operationally with the golf course, there were no objections, and we generally had no objection to the location. So
Because Casola did test bores there.
up in the
Directly across, if you look in a northern direction from where the wells are, and then there's like
uphill.
uphill, there's the
yeah.
rough. And they put in, I think, 2 or 3 test bores and said they weren't good. So again, I don't know.
We'll double check that, but Joe, this particular area was recently cleared, so it wasn't previously exposed.
Uh-huh.
So my gut is it's probably not in the same exact location as where those are, but that's a good point that we should just double
And,
check.
I mean, there should still be stakes in there indicating where they did those test bores.
Okay, yeah,
You and I could go over there and just check it
yeah.
out.
If you want, I can show you pictures. If you let me share my screen, I can show you
Yeah,
pictures.
that'd be great.
Okay. Someone's got to give me the ability to share though. I'm disabled.
It's okay.
Okay. Bear with me.
That's okay, and, because it wasn't just north, it was also a little bit west where they had put a test site.
Right.
Can you see that?
Yep. If you could enlarge your screen, Joe?
Yeah, you know what? Let me stop that and try that again. So that is the location of the wells now. So those are the two production wells now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the location of one of the proposed replacement wells.
Okay.
Okay. And let me see if I can get you the other picture. Okay, you can see that. So the other one is up on that little berm there.
Right, right.
Okay.
And if you,
All right.
in looking at that, as we look toward us, if you could just go back to that picture, Joe?
Okay, bear with me. Yep.
If you come forward of that, whatever that is, that stick,
This is the golf course here, yeah.
to the right and the left of it had been where Casella had done test wells. I think we still have all of the data with regards to the depth of the test bore.
Okay.
I can't, it's not on the top of my head. So
Yep.
it would be interesting, or it may be useful to you to see that,
Sure.
to see
Any
what
data-
they did.
Yeah, where would you have that data? Do you know where it is?
I'm sorry?
Do you have that data handy? Do you know where you could get that?
That would have that would have been in Bob Holzmacher's office, I guess. It certainly
I think I
predates.
have it.
I mean, unless you had a copy, certainly, we didn't receive a copy.
No, I think because there was a little bit of we contested the company that did that test bore anyway, so I will look for that data.
Yeah, if you have it, that'd be great. So when it's all said and done, this is what the wells will look like. So you see they're just a little bit more, like I said, utility oriented. They're steel cased and they're more robust construction. This is the kind of well you want to drink water out of. Not that there's anything wrong with the water coming out of the existing wells, but this is water authority grade construction.
I have another question.
Yes.
And the Water Advisory Commission committee in Sheltron we brought this up before, and that is protecting public water fields.
Yep.
And I think we've talked about it before, as far as put some kind of gate, something to make it difficult for anybody to access, just because people could access.
Agreed.
So, if that is something that needs to be taken up with the golf course, the manager of the golf course, I
Well, the health
personally believe that we
department-
should protect our well fields. That's
Yeah.
You mean like a physical
a
barrier?
physical barrier. Because right now, they're wide open for anybody to access if they wanted to bad enough. Not that they would, but
Joe, are the new casing and cap combination, is that somewhat tamper-proof for the exposure that it has on the golf course?
Look, I mean, it's much more robust than what's there now, but if somebody wanted to tamper with it, they could find a way to do it.
Right.
there are plugs up there on the top that somebody could mess around. There's even a sampler built into the top of the casing,
Yeah.
so that you can actually take a sample from that particular well. So to me, the most prudent thing to do would be to build some type of cage or fence around the wells. And I can guarantee you that the health department, at some point when they catch up, they're going to require that
Right.
we do something like that.
Can we
So-
build that into the construction of these wells?
We'll do it. I mean, it's not going to necessarily be done by the well driller or whatnot, but as we're restoring the area, we'll take a look and see what we'll do. Again, it may be like a little cyclone fence around it or some type of cage, but we'll come up with something to make sure they're secure. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions?
No, so we should have 3 functioning wells when?
Yeah,
Well-
3. Yes.
I don't know.
But when, I mean, do
A
we,
couple of months.
when does the flag go up? But when will we have 3 functioning wells, do you think?
So Bob, so right now you have 3. You got 2 over on the golf course, and there's 1 over by the pump station.
Right,
And in fact, there were actually, this one of the challenges with your system is that the DEC permits were so confused. So we did a consolidated permit, and there were actually 2 other wells that were listed as being active wells in the system. I think it was 1 and 2. So we actually retired them. We took them off the books because they weren't there. They weren't being used. They had been retired a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we kind of consolidated everything with the DEC to make sure that they understand now that there is it's now I'm confused. I think it's 4, 5, and 6. And when we're
Right.
done, it'll be 4, 5A, and 6A. The A's are the replacement wells. So there'll be 3 functioning wells at that point. 5A and 6A across the street on the golf course, and 4, I think it's 4 or 3. That's
4 and
over
3
at
are in the pump house, right?
It's
And
4,
3,
right?
the 4 and 3 are both over on the other side of the road.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'm
3
looking
was
at it right now.
really
It's
only,
4, yep.
it was only used as a backup.
Yeah,
'Cause
4.
it's a very
Well,
poorly
4, yeah,
constructed-
I mean, right. I mean, 4 has got the least desirable water quality, so it's kind of a backup. Yep.
Yep.
I think
And
it's
3
got some
should be really
manganese and some
retired.
iron.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Because people know that I'm on the board, but they ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know.
Sure.
What we're doing across the street, the golf course, but mostly how we know and feel culpably that we can say that the water that we have is the safest there is. And everybody should feel very comfortable at Shelter Island because of this. The very stupid sentence version, but how would I explain that to others? Does that make sense?
Well,
Exactly what you just talked about. Are we taking care to make sure that it's the safest it is, and we're doing things that we want to make sure that it's going to be safe and no one can come exactly what you said and do something
right.
that not so.
Yeah, so Donna, so there's a couple things. I mean, there's something called source water protection that the state and the DEC and water suppliers are always very concerned about, and that's watching what's going on around the wells themselves. So, one of the things, I just what Lisa was talking about, the fence or the whatever security around the wells, that's your basic thing to make sure that nobody physically tampers with the wells, because that would certainly compromise water quality if somebody did that. But then there's the whole concept of source water protection, where you look and you see, what development is going on a well, what is going on. Let's say we're on a golf course, right? So what are the pesticides and fertilizer application practices of the golf course? Those kind of things will go a long way. That's source water protection to ensuring the long-term, quality of the well. Of course, the thing that you do constantly is you test the wells, right? So we do that constantly because you have to. Well, by regulation, we have to, but that's how you know what's going on in the well, because you're constantly accumulating data on the constituents that you find in the well, and you're trending them and you're watching to see if there are some alarming trends going on or whether everything is stable and looks good. So, there's kind of a three-pronged approach. One, protecting the well itself, the other, the source water, and then the belt and suspenders is testing the heck out of it. And I mean, the Water Authority, you guys know us at this point. We test very robustly. We do it more frequently than it's typically required by the state and by the health department. And then we test for a lot more than's required. The number is like 400 contaminants we test for, and we're only required to test for 250, I think it is.
Joe, whose responsibility is the source protection? I mean, you brought up fertilizer on the golf course, an interesting thought. Is that SQUA's responsibility or?
Well, obviously, I don't control what the golf course applicator puts on the golf course. We probably should develop a relationship. I mean, fortunately, it's a town-operated golf course. Joe is here at the table. He knows what goes on at the golf course. At this point, we don't really have a relationship with the golf course operator. Maybe we should, so that they can, if something goes on or they're doing something that we'd be concerned about, we know more about it. I'd be more than happy to establish a relationship with that person or persons to help ensure that. And then source water protection, from a development standpoint, that's something that very often we as the water supplier and the operator of the wells there, when there is development that's going on in the area, through the SEQRA process, we can be notified about development that's going on in the area. And then just surveillance, when we see something being built, if we don't know about it, we will question it. And then, we would hope that the town would keep us appraised of things that are going on, if they have plans for something. So, it's, there's a lot of communication that's required in order to make it happen. So it's a multi kind of pronged approach when it comes to that.
I will address the golf course. We've talked to the manager of the golf course and asked for a list of chemicals that gets sprayed on the greens.
Sure.
And it's like pulling teeth, and it's also difficult to assess what those chemicals, how they break down. You can look at the parent chemical, but you don't always know what the composite of it is going to be once it hits the water and the soil.
Sure.
So that is something I think we should be much more robust about doing, is getting that list and seeing, and I know because you've said that when we look at the full water panel, we can see residuals from different pesticides and chemicals. But I think to the layperson, it's difficult to understand what aldicarb is, for example.
Sure.
So I would be very much in favor of establishing a relationship with the golf course manager.
Well, I would be happy to participate in that. I could probably have my lead hydrogeologist, who does this with other places, be involved in that also. So it would make sense. I think that would make a lot of sense. So if you want to arrange something where we could get together, just knowing each other and having each other's contact information and understanding where we're coming from, that could be very helpful. It's a good first step.
Joe, does source water protection go beyond the golf course and the immediate vicinity of the well?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about fertilizer and use throughout the island.
Yeah. So, well, look, I mean, I think there's no place that I know of in Suffolk County that's more cognizant of the water below the people's feet than Shelter Island. It's pretty much the DNA of everybody that I've met out there at this point. But with specific concern about the wells, we have a model that shows when we pump a well where the water comes from, right? Because the water doesn't necessarily just come from the area around the well. It typically comes from the direction of where the groundwater is flowing. So there are models of groundwater, and there's one for Shelter Island that shows the good direction of groundwater flow. And then we use a model that was developed by CDM for the entire county to show where the water actually comes from. It's almost like you're taking water out of a stream and you know the water's coming from upstream. Well, the same thing happens when you take water out of the ground. It's really coming from the areas up gradient of where you're located. So we do that modeling, and then we can show where a drop of water lands on the ground and how many years it takes for that drop of water, theoretically, to make its way to the well screen. And then we have these zones of contribution, they're called 2-year, 5-year, 10-year zones of contribution. And there are different levels of concern. You know, something that can make its way to the well screen within 2 years is much more concerning than something that may take 20 years. Because in 20 years, there are more opportunities for degradation of contaminants and dilution of contaminants. With something that happens within the 2-year capture zone is of much more concern. So we use that to look, and when someone is going to develop something, or when you're going to see a septic system that's going to be installed, and we have the opportunity to comment on that, we'll typically work with a developer or a homeowner or whoever's building whatever they're building to locate, if they have a septic system, in a place that may be less intrusive on the well itself, on the zone of contribution of the well. And we do
We
that
have very good mod flows charts.
Uh-huh.
We
Well,
really
we're
do.
going to need
Very
new ones
comprehensive.
now. So
I'm sorry?
we're gonna have to develop new ones because we've got new wells with different depths and different capacities. So we will update those. Our hydrogeologists know how to run the groundwater model. So they will take the groundwater model and modify it for the new wells.
That would be great. That'd be really good. And that leads me to an item on the agenda, and it's sort of germane to this conversation, and that is the test, the annual water quality report. We had a customer question how years ago we were notified by email, for example, or we were contacted individually. Now we understand that the annual report, we're notified on our bills when it's available.
Yes.
So I just need to say that so that the public understands that you don't get a personal invite anymore to look at that. It's on your bill that you get from Suffolk County Water Authority. So another question that was tangential to that was the difficulty in getting a hold of this water quality report when you go to the Suffolk County Water Report page. There are different methods to finding your area. And then when you go to the page where you're supposed to be able to access your district water report, it says click on this. Well, the click doesn't work. So you then have to go to the download the whole report in order to be able to see the full panel of testing for your area and then every other area. And this may be a little bit garbled for people to understand. Do you understand what I'm talking about, Joe?
I do. And,
Show the page here if.
I was going to bring it up and I was going to show you how you can do it because I've done it. It's just
Well, I mean, I know how to do it, but if you want to walk us through it, please do. So there's no question about.
Let me, for some reason, this is not intuitive as to how I do it. Hang on.
Well, when you go to like if you Google the water report, the annual water report from Suffolk County Water Authority, you come up to a page and then you have different choices about how to access your district.
Are you seeing that right now?
We're seeing that, yes.
You're seeing the water quality, my website?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So if I go to water quality and water quality reports,
Yep.
and I go down here to 2023, because that's the most recent report.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go here to look at water quality information for my community.
Right.
So the map comes up, I hit OK, and I zoom in. and I get over here to Shelter Island. So these are the two water systems we operate. Here's Daring Harbor and here's yours. I'm gonna click on this and see it says Squad Distribution Area, WNWD, West Neck Water District. Click here. Oh, the resource
That's
you
what
were
you get.
looking for has been removed.
Yes,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, well, now I know what you're talking about.
So then
I'll
you
have
have to
to-
go back to that page and
Yeah.
click on download the whole water.
Yes, yeah, that's the alternative, is to do that, correct.
Which is okay. I mean, I think it's very interesting
Yep.
personally.
Yep.
But then
So
in
you-
order to find West Neck Water District, it's a little bit difficult. If you want to, can you go back to that page?
Yeah, do you still see my screen?
And we don't see with the screen that you had up before. No, we don't see the water quality report.
Oh, okay, hold on. Oh, I stopped sharing, hold on.
Because I really think that everybody needs to know how to do this. There's a lot of good information on this
Oh,
report.
it's great. It's a great, okay, can you see that?
Right. So that's the box I click on right
Yeah, so
there.
you click on the print and then you open the file. It's a big file. It's a big report.
I just click on that box and and it opens right up for me.
Yeah. You know what? I've got to stop sharing now and give you another screen. Hold on.
I mean, I could share my screen, but
No, I got it.
okay.
All right. So that's the report.
Yeah.
And now we have to go over and we have to take a look at the page. So you're in water distribution area 66,
That's correct.
right? So now we go down here and, we have a lot of, there's a lot of great information for somebody that's interested in drinking water. This is great. But
It
you
is
can
great.
see there's a distribution area listed by name, by number, because we
Now this-
have,
This comes up to the next problem, Joe.
yep,
We're looking at the map as number 66 is the number of our district. So when you go to the panel of testing, you would think that we would be under number 66, but we're
right. And
not.
what is it? It says distribution area WNWD.
Exactly. So, that makes just a little bit more of a disconnect, it makes it a little
Yep.
bit more difficult to
Yep.
interpret that. So
absolutely.
people need to understand that.
Yep. You're absolutely right. We'll fix that the next time we put it out. But right now it just says West Neck Water District. But regardless, so we find that on page 26. And then what we do is if you take a look at these regulations here, there is, because we're trying to summarize all the results for the particular year, and we take many samples, instead of listing every sample result, what we do is we take a look at all the results and we give you the low and the high and the average. And we tell you
Okay.
how many tests were done. So this gives you an idea of the compound. So they're divided up by inorganic, synthetic organics, and volatile organics. So these are the compounds that we test for. And then you see the levels. So
When you go to, I'm sorry if I'm monopolizing all the time here, but I have to get these questions answered.
Mhm.
When you go to West Neck Water District, for example, on PCPs, personal care products,
Okay, so what page are you on there? I think that's back
I'm
here,
on
right?
page
Yeah, I've got it.
13.
Yep.
I was surprised to see, because it used to be that we had a detection, not an MCL, but there was a reading for acylsulfame, which is an artificial sweetener, and sucralose, and we've been getting that for years in our well reports. But
Right.
this year, for the first time, I see ibuprofen,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pretty hefty number. It's not an MCL, but I
Right.
think it's, if I can, I
Yeah,
lost it.
there are no drinking water standards for these compounds, right? So this is an example of the testing that we do that's over and above what we have to do testing for. So there are no MCLs for them. Were you testing for ibuprofen back then?
Well, no, I looked at that the panel of testing that you did 2 years ago, or, yeah, 2 years ago, and it didn't come up. And
Oh, it
it
was
didn't come
zero
up
back
last
then?
year. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
My question is that indicative of septic? Of septic
Well,
infiltration?
there's only one real place that comes from, right? That's, it's not like people sprinkle ibuprofen on the ground.
Right.
So I would say, yes, that's definitely an indication of something that came from something that somebody flushed down the toilet.
Right, so given the location of our wells in the golf course,
Mhm.
we have residences to the the west, nothing to the east, nothing to the north or the south, really, to speak of. So it would seem that whatever's on the west side coming down the hill from Manwaring Road, I mean, we look at geography and think, does water travel synonymously with geography?
That was-
That's where all the houses are located, and I'm just wondering if we could see if that is a possible infiltrator.
Well, I tell you what, let's do a swap analysis. Let's do the modeling of these new wells and see where the water's coming from, or we'll do it for the existing wells to see where they're coming from. But if those are the closest homes and if they're up gradient, then
Yeah.
that would make the most sense.
Yeah.
So what would you do about something like that? There are some places in this country where when there's any kind of indication that septic systems are failing or that they're not doing their job, local government or sometimes even the water utility goes to have septic systems either replaced or renovated or whatnot. They have these IA systems that are out there now. I'm sure you must have a bunch of those on the island at this point.
Yep.
That goes to source water protection. No question about it.
What's interesting is when you look at the whole panel of testing for all of the distribution areas,
Yep.
you don't see ibuprofen come up in too many, except for those very farther west.
Yeah, I know that we detect it. We've seen it in other places. I'm just looking here to see if I can see it.
I mean, I've been looking for it.
Yeah.
It's just,
I could tell you that's not unique to just your area, or the area of these wells. We see that in other town buildings across the island also. Not necessarily ibuprofen, but I was just sharing with Amber the other day that there's low levels of caffeine in the water for the well of this building. And I think that's, furthering the point that, how you use these facilities and has an influence on what's coming back. This is an office building, essentially people are drinking coffee here and doing number one. And now there's evidence of that completing the cycle, coming back up, again. So the impact is very real and connected.
right.
Yep. Yeah. So, I see detections in a couple of different areas here, 12, 17, 23. I've heard of us detecting it before. I remember when we first started detecting it. But yeah, it's an indicator.
It's an indicator.
It's just like you said, it's an indicator.
We have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa.
Do you want to go to the podium then so people online can hear you? Thank you.
Benjamin Diet, Town Councilman, alternate liaison to this body. This is interesting information, but it also points directly to education. What has been planned to educate people to stop pouring ibuprofen in their toilet? Has that been a topic for this committee yet?
Ibuprofen may not be coming from it may be I don't know, it may be
Well, I think
a pharmaceutical that doesn't metabolize.
yeah, the joke always has been that older men in particular should go to Greenport to urinate. That would solve a lot of the
Well,
problems.
there's a discount on the ferry, that would make some sense.
There you go, you solved that problem.
We did have a campaign last winter, and we need to revitalize it. We need to remind people of it. I think probably especially coming into the populated months. We had a poster made sitting out there. Don't put your medications in the toilet or down your faucet. And that needs to be really driven home a lot and repeated a lot so that people get the message. To not do that. We have a box down in the pharmacy where you can put in your prescription medications. So,
You know,
you're
and
right, it's education.
Yeah,
some places are more susceptible to these kind of things than others. If you go to the main body of the island where the water table is far down and the wells are extremely deep, things that go on the surface take an awful long time to get down to the wells. But on Shelter Island, where you have such a shallow water table and where the wells are shallow themselves, this is a much more urgent thing for us and for government maybe to address, because things can happen much faster in a scenario like this.
Okay. Thank you, just want to underline that.
Yeah, Ben, I would add too that the big takeaway is that some of those issues are addressed by, and they're avoidable by the campaign that Lisa sponsored last year for not flushing the drugs. But other drugs are just passing through, prescription drugs are passing through unmetabolized and entering through the waste stream. And that's really, and the takeaway, I think, from that, from an educational standpoint, is how important testing is in an area where infrastructure is like it is here, where it's well and septic. Some of these are not even on standard test panels.
No, they're not.
The average person goes to get their water tested, and they're not even checking
No,
for
you
these
would never
things,
get this. Yep.
right? So so we have very limited data on where these tests have been done in the first place. But the obvious thing I think that jumps out is how it is all connected. The caffeine in the town building is so oddly ironic and sort of disappointing, but understandable. You can make those connections of how there's not naturally caffeine in the groundwater, but now you can see how it got there, and so the impact on use is I think so clearly connected to our source water.
Yep, absolutely.
And it also brings into discussion how we approach wastewater management, because many of the techniques that are available now don't address those types of contaminants. And so I think it stresses again the need for monitoring and understanding of the drinking water supply as well. If you can't wastewater your way out of it, you still got the issue of how to take it out of the drinking water.
Look, I learned a very important new term today, source water protection.
There you go. We call it SWAP, actually. Source Water Assessment Program.
And I would go so far as to say that if it's indicative of the, say, loose or degrading septic systems to the west, which is upgrade from our wells, that we might even want to look at that and tackle those parcels and those properties and encourage homeowners to look. And I don't know if they even know where their old septic systems are, but to put out the information, the educational information about cleaning out your septic system every year.
Yep.
Now we know these people are in pain. They're taking painkillers, so we should be helping them with swift recovery, I guess. All the ibuprofen.
The
that they're
ibuprofen.
taking.
Yeah.
But, as we gather more data, and I like Lisa, so you say that you looked at this a couple of years ago, you didn't see any, and now you see a detection of it. As we work here on the island more and we have more data, as we gather more data over time, those trends become more obvious, because sometimes things pop up and then they go away. But then some things tend to increase over time, and that's when something's definitely going on. It's not uncommon for us to all of a sudden get a hit. Like if I look at this data again for West Neck for that, so there were 12 tests, and the high value is 0.18. And since there isn't a low value, I think what that means is that was one test had a value was detected, and that's the 0.18 because there is no low value indicated. So it's probably 1 out of 12 in that case. So in a case like that, it's like hovering right around the detection limit, it sounds like.
Yeah, but there is an MCL of 50, and I think that must be micrograms per liter.
I don't know if there is a 50 for that particular. Oh, it does say, yeah. So it's an
That's
unspecified.
50.
It's an unspecified compound, right? And it's 50 parts per. It's 50
Micrograms
parts
per liter.
per billion. Billion with a B, right? And that result is, I assume that's in billions also, or parts per billion. So that's at 0.18.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever there's an unspecified, whenever there's no MCL, it falls under something called the unspecified regulation, and that's the 50 number.
Okay, so that's just that's a
It's definitely something to
standard.
look at, and like I said, I'll have our guys take a look at it and see if we can develop a better understanding as to where the water's coming from, where it's
Right.
going to come from when we put the new wells in, and then we can talk about, what properties may be in the zone of contribution of the wells, and then we can talk about what might be done about that.
I have one more question, and then Benjamin has another question. My question is, there's no I couldn't find any indication if the testing is done from raw water source or treated water source,
Yeah, so
or is it
most
both?
of these tests here are treated water samples. This is what the customer is receiving.
Yeah,
Okay. There's something called a supplementary test, a supplementary report that is also online there, and that has raw water data.
okay.
Hold on for a second, please.
Benjamin, if you want to, he's on the phone right now.
Yeah. Maybe it's kind of a question for me again. Me being the new person here and preparing for this meeting, I was kind of getting a little frustrated trying to gather the information from the website and other places. Is there a way, and it might be outside the scope of their duties, the Suffolk County Water Authority, but can they provide us with some sort of report summary that we can post on our website so the residents of Shelter Island can click and have it in front of them? Because, I mean, they just demonstrated how hard it was to find it on their website. So I think it's upon us to make it easier for people to find it on our side.
Well, certainly we could go in and take all of the West Neck water district values out and put them on one page. That would be, somebody would have to do that. It's not beneficial to anybody outside of the district. However, in this water report is also Deering Harbor's numbers. So we could conceivably do sort of a comparison and show that what is in Deering Harbor water and what's in West Neck water. And I was thinking about this with regards to nitrates, even though they don't take tests from individual wells and it's a compilation of 3 wells, it would be valuable to take the nitrate levels from West Neck water and Deering Harbor, just for the town to see in comparison with the nitrate testing that we're doing.
Sure.
I think it would.
Yeah, I think we should just, the simple thing also for making this more accessible is when the report comes out that, we just download it from the Suffolk Water website and we can post a link or, the whole file onto the town website as well for the annual report.
Well, I have it right here. I can
Yeah. So,
send it to you.
Easy peasy. That's something that we could do
That's
very
great.
quickly.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, just make it a little more accessible.
It's not an easy read, but if you're interested in water, it's a great read. So,
Yeah. And this was the
The
first.
health department has told me that it's the most complicated water report in the state. And that's because we have 600 sources. So we have 600 wells that feed the system. If you take your water from a reservoir or a lake, all you have is one zone. Your water quality report is much easier to produce.
And this
So
was the
that's why
first,
this is-
Joe, this was the first go-around also with West Nile Water integrated into the larger
Yes,
Suffolk Water family report,
Yes.
because the previous year,
yep,
you guys, I think you guys produced or modified an individual one because we were still independent. And then the previous year before that was done, right, was done in-house.
right, until we had a full year of our own testing results,
Right.
we continued to produce your report, like a custom report.
Yeah.
So I don't, like I mentioned before, I'm not sure if this is outside the scope of your contract, Joe, but maybe you can help us with producing summaries of this information that we can post on our website. But I'll leave that to you guys.
You know, Benjamin, it might be beneficial to you when the meeting is over, if you want to just take a look at this,
Mhm.
so you know how, I mean, there's like 39 pages of
Oh, yeah.
information, so. But I think it would help you sort of decipher
Well,
what
it
the
can
process.
be overwhelming when you first look at it, but I think, yeah, like you said, Lisa, once you kind of become comfortable with the sections and how it works, it's not that bad.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that we're going over this is because, you know, we've had members of the district say that they couldn't access, or they wanted to have questions about the water report. So I'm bringing this up to indicate to those who may be listening that it's possible to find it, and the information there is in there, and encourage everybody else to read it, because it's really great information.
There's actually a feature in there. I mean, it looks like it doesn't work right now for one reason or another, but there is a feature in there where you put in your address. That's all you have to do is put in your address, and it brings up the water quality for your area. So that's really the way it should work. But as you saw, when we clicked on it, there was a problem.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to the lab and IT and find out what's going on with that.
Yeah, there just seems to be a little information gap and education gap. So if we can fill it, that would be great.
I want to just add on to that. Amber Brock Williams, the other liaison. 10 minutes ago, I just sent to Christina and Coco, who are in the process of updating our new website, that when they have a chance to reach out to you or you to get that link so it can get embedded. We're not going to bother with the old website because by February 16th, we will not be using the old website, but for the new website, we'll get that incorporated. It may take a little while, but you'll see that come through your emails.
Okay, good. Well, if there are no more questions about the, you know, this annual water report, then we'll move on to the next item, which really is not, we don't need you to discuss it, Joe,
Okay.
unless there's something else you want to add to what we're doing.
No, I think those are the big things. Again, I think, you know, we've been coordinating with Joe with respect to the new wells. When we have the permits in hand and we know when the contractor is mobilizing, Joe, we'll get in contact with you. We'll do that beforehand, but that'll be the next big thing. Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
it's
Joe.
good seeing you all. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
We've also been working to secure county permits for the electrical work that needs to be upgraded.
Mhm.
And one thing we're trying to track down, which we just located, were the easements and subdivision documents for the properties around the pump house. So that's something we need to get a better grasp on anyway. We should have those located in the deeds and whatnot, but it's one more lingering thing that we're working on to finish so that we can get the permit to cross the road.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
nothing
Yeah.
needed from you guys, just an update.
No, yeah, that's good to know, because it's always been questionable.
And then I had your note here about the pumpage.
Oh, that's what, yeah, I did forget. Do you have that pumpage?
Yeah, we get a monthly, the regulatory agencies require monthly, they call it pump reports, but it's really an activity report for the water operator. So Suffolk Water fills them out for, every pump station, every water district. And then the town actually does their own for our own community system. Some town buildings qualify for these. And so they share with us the monthly report, but it gets submitted to the health department. They're like the repository and the regulatory agency that, you know, gives you feedback if you have a problem. So we have them, and so I keep the pump reports as they come in. They also have the list of what tests were done on any given month. So each year, this is sort of just background information, each year the health department sends out what they call the annual monitoring requirements. And they're subject to change each year based on your specific conditions. And that's when they'll give you a list of all of the things that they require you to test for and their associated frequency. So some items may be tested more frequently at the West Neck system than they do at Town Hall, because there was perhaps some concern about an elevated level or, you know, some mineral condition. And so every district or every registered water system has its own unique monitoring requirements. And inside those pump reports is the verification of what tests were done that month. Typically, the most frequent basis for testing is daily. That's on the disinfection. And then it goes with decreasing frequency from weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and then annually. And so that pump report will tell you, you know, whether you just did the regular disinfection checks or if that particular month they did their quarterlies, and there'll be a more robust test panel. So long story short, we get those. And just for reference, your peak daily pumpage is usually in the 50,000 gallon range per day. That's a busy day in the summer. And your typical off-peak pumpage can be anywhere from like the high single digits, 8,000 or 9,000, to low teens per day. You know, 12, 13,000.
That's like now.
Like now, yeah, yep. And so you see, you know, that's a pretty substantial difference from, you know, winter to summer. And one thing about the old wells that are set to be retired, 5 and 6, they were actually designated for 25 gallon per minute operation.
Right.
And one of the reasons why they are at the end of their useful life is because they have been operated at about twice that. So we actually get like 50 gallons per minute out of them. And each well has generally a set amount of water that you can extract from it before it begins to fail. And so these wells are a little bit young in terms of failure, but not young when you consider how much water has actually been extracted from them. They did produce quite a bit of water, and they produced double what they were expected to produce in terms of their rate. So now that we're moving to.
They had to.
They had to, right, yeah, exactly. And so now that we're moving to the new ones at 100 gallons per minute, on paper, you're replacing 2 25 gallons per minute with 2 100 gallons per minute. In practice, you're replacing the 50 with 100, but no matter how you slice it.
So the capacity for 100 could increase.
Potentially, yeah, potentially. I think generally that's not advisable. The casing diameter and the well screen are set for your design. You know, in this case, it's 100. In the case of the original 5 and 6, it sounds like, you know, they were never even really intended to be production wells, but it was sort of I suspect it was a low cost option and timely option to upgrade them from monitoring wells to production wells. That's what happened. But this is a really great example of the type of, investment and upgrades, converting these wells that had some vulnerabilities, you know, for safety, certainly, to now, you know, a full-blown production, high production well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, because really on paper, we were not able to adequately supply the district as it is.
Right.
So now will we be able to supply the district and in fact, maybe increase the district footprint?
Yeah, it would be my recommendation to, certainly to the town and to the board that once these wells are installed, we should look to connect those properties that were within the district and have already submitted applications to be connected. One, because I know some of them are dealing with water quality issues already, and they fall within the footprint of the system. And two, that's, also healthy for the finances of the district to include a few more customers. So I'm hoping, and I don't think that amounts to very many. I think it's 2 or 3.
Well, we have
something like
one, we
that.
have one homeowner who's sort of desperate, and then we've had inquiries from people in Hilo. And we've had inquiries from people on Manwaring Road too.
So Hilo, I think, is a different conversation because there's no infrastructure.
There's no
And
infrastructure.
it's a sizable community. What my
Well, the one inquiry that we had is on West Neck Road, and it's adjacent, it abuts
Right.
the main. So
Right,
it's
right.
just a feed.
along the route already,
It's
they're
on the
already,
route.
yeah. So those are the examples that
Right.
I'm talking about, people that are, it's quite literally just a matter of connecting from their house to the main in front of their property.
And honestly, the reason that I put quarterly pump report on here, I was thinking more in terms of having it just for the Water Advisory Committee. To
Yeah,
have, it's just one more body of knowledge as far as what is coming out of the aquifer and what is coming out of the ground, to know that in this district, you could even make find our footprint, if you will, and use it like we have the center nitrate footprint, even though it's individual wells within that footprint, but you could just say, okay, this is how much water is coming out of this area.
yeah, it's good for usage. I mean, it's the one of very few areas on the island where the water's, metered. We know we can get ideas for what average
Exactly.
household consumption is like.
Yeah.
The monthly reports we get don't include usually the test results. So the disinfection test results are in there, but like the full panel laboratory tests,
Like this one, 400.
right, those are not in, I don't think they even have them at the time so it's really just a report to say that they did it. And that the results are,
That they're disinfected.
or took the other samples that, they met the requirement for testing for nitrates this month, so that's on the report, but the results are usually not in the report for those bigger tests, but like the disinfection, that is in there. So yeah, we can share those with the WAC, I
If
think.
it ever comes to, just wanting to share that kind of information, we
Yeah.
have it, so.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Amber. Have we paid Squaw yet?
Before this meeting, I realized, did we do that? Did we not do it? And so I reached out to Joe to get a clean bill from them, because what he had sent previously was part of a big spreadsheet, so.
I mean, they're not asking for it.
Exactly, yeah. He didn't think of it until I reminded him. Yeah, so he did respond after he.
We can go as long as they want us to go
Yes.
without paying them.
Yeah.
Because we're accruing money,
Yes, it's in the class of earning interest.
all right? So I will not say another word about that.
I did reach out to him just to close the loop, because it is a small open item, but it'd be nice to get done.
The last item on here, do you have any other, do you want to, I don't want to.
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
The last item that we have that we hadn't gone over was the review of the Shelter on Town Committee rules and procedures. We have a member of this committee that needed to sort of review that, because we haven't seen this committee member in a year. But they expressed interest in staying on the committee, so I just sent them, and I think we should all be apprised of that there are rules and procedures with regards to sitting on a committee. You do have to show up. You do have to participate, and unless you have a reason that you can't, and which reason should be told to the clerk. So I think that's kind of important to go over. Questions about that? No?
At the Senior Citizens Foundation, but applies to old people only, 2 unexcused absences. And in most cases, mothers were not available to sign slips, and you're gone. Everybody thought that was a pretty good idea.
Okay. All
I
right,
mean,
well,
pay attention. Pay attention. Take a look at it's all on the town website.
mhm,
So I would be harsh.
okay. Harsh it is. Well, we have to go by the town's recommendations, but it's.
Why is that?
Because we're a town committee?
I see, okay. No, because I thought committees did have certain leeway in establishing their own rules of attendance. Do we?
We have a policy, the rules and procedures manual that the town board passed a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we did have a few committees where people were just not showing up, and so we wanted to have a more formalized mechanism for reviewing and replacing.
Right.
And then also just there's other, codes of conduct kind of things that are in there.
Right, so I think we need to enforce that.
Yeah. And everyone should review it, just because.
Yeah.
While volunteers still considered employees of the town, so there's like little bits of training that will be coming out in the next few months that everyone needs to follow.
Okay, if there are no other, minutes. If you've read through them and you want to.
It's on, is that what we read?
Yes, it is what we received. There's a couple of items in the minutes that I'm, mea culpa here, have still not done. And we were supposed to set up a call with the Squaw Finance Department regarding if we could keep the money, if we could hold on to the money that they collected for us. We have not done that. So I don't know if that's worth pursuing or.
We should, because we also had on that list, besides seeing if we could get our money quarterly, just so we can invest it ourselves, we also wanted to just review the rate structure with there was one piece of the rate that they were doing one way and West Neck Water used to do another way.
Right, and
To get that reestablished, if that was a possibility.
they were theoretically, that is happening,
Okay,
but I don't know because I haven't looked at my bill yet.
okay.
Have you looked at your bill? Have you had a bill?
I don't deal with.
I don't deal with my bills either. Okay, we need to look at our bills. Yeah, I'll look at it and get back to you.
Yeah, it had to do with the access fees.
Okay.
All right, well, if everybody approves of the minutes or has looked at them and no question, can we approve them?
I so resolve, we
Okay.
approve the minutes.
I
Do you wanna-
second.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions.
We have a question from the.
Sure. Okay. Lori? Lori, you want to ask a question?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, it's Lori, Beard Raymond, and, good conversation today. I have a number of questions, of things that were discussed about in the meeting, and I didn't want to interrupt you because I didn't know if we were allowed to interrupt as the topics were talked about, but, the first question I have is, and maybe Joe can answer this since, Joe Picorni has left, is the DEC permit for the new wells. Joe, there are a couple of things in that permit application that I was surprised to see. And one of them was the legal notice had the lot where the pump house as the legal notice and the permit. However, the wells are on a different lot entirely, which is the golf course lot, and that was not referenced in the permit other than the illustration that went with the permit, nor the legal notice. Are we clear that the DEC understands that the wells are not going on the pump house property? Because that's the tax map number that was used.
Yeah, we are, and Lori, that's a good catch by you, but that was part of the consolidation process of the various well permits with the DEC and this new particular application. So I haven't seen the new permits come out because they're not available yet, but certainly that's the intention is to have the pump house where all the treatment happens and the wells located across the two tax parcels, the golf course and the flag lot where the pump house is.
All right, well, it's something that you might want to look into, Joe, because I don't want that to trip you up and delay, the permit, because the legal notice and the permit have the wells labeled as the tax map number for the pump house and not the golf course.
Okay, I think we get that, yeah.
Okay, the second thing is, Lisa, thank you for bringing up the history on all the test wells. Casola, Gregor, and there was another well drill, I don't remember which one now, because it was so long ago, that did test holes on two different occasions. One when they put wells 5 and 6, and when they were putting those in. And then again, when we were looking at well number 7, and there were at least 4 test holes, I think, when we were investigating well number 7 locations.
There were 3.
Yeah, 3, I think so,
Yeah.
yeah, 3 or 4. And then there was also the 3 or 4 before that, when they originally stalled wells 5 and 6. And they were not able to find the potable water at a depth we would have liked to have seen. So my only concern is, I don't know the difference between a Casola well driller and someone Suffolk County Water would use as a well driller. But I'm hopeful that Suffolk County Water can do a 55-foot depth, 100 gallon per minute, 2 wells. But I am concerned because these other well drillers and the hydrologist, which was brought out to do this research and coordinated with Bob Halsmacher, they weren't able to achieve that. So I'm hopefully optimistic that Suffolk County Water Authority knows something that these guys didn't know and can achieve that.
Well, if I may, we were still testing for a 25-foot depth. And I think that is what Casola tested for on the test bores. So, this testing that they're going to do is much greater than that. I have a lot more confidence that they're going to be able to find the water at the depth that they're testing for rather than what we were looking for previously.
Well, Casola will only test to 25 feet. That's a standard test hole, unless you specifically ask otherwise. And if you look at the old documentation from Halsmacher, he did request a greater depth. And I don't know if it wasn't done or he couldn't get it or whatever the issue or the problem was at that time, but they weren't able to achieve that, and I don't know why.
Well, if you recall, we had a difficulty with Casola.
We
We had
did the second time. The first time I wasn't involved because that was when they installed 5 and 6, which was what before my time.
Well, that's already done and gone. The wells 5 and 6 now are the ones that we've been using. So whatever they dug before would be sort of a moot at this point.
But like I said, I'm hopefully optimistic that the well driller that Suffolk County Water Authority is going to be able to achieve what these other well drillers could not. So that's one thing that I was happy to here discussing, because I think there is data out there. Now, where that data is, I don't know. That's a different issue. I know it's out there. When John Holman retired, did we not get all of his records? I thought he was asked to turn that stuff over. Do we know where all that stuff is?
We got some records, Laurie. We did not get all records. We asked for more than we received. And it was not an easy process getting what we did get.
Okay. So then my next question is on the DEC permit, because I want to stick to that topic. The other thing that I was surprised to see on that application, Joe, is that there are 7 properties that are not currently existing West Neck Water footprint or customers. So I had thought that with all the conversations that we weren't expanding to new customers until after these new wells were put in. But in that application, now I understand why some of those properties are on there. One of them is with a corner of the golf course where the wells are. So you were trying to capture that. I get that. There's two properties that look like there is the pipe that runs down through the wood that feeds Sunset Beach. I don't know why that's why that's now included in the footprint when it really should just be an easement. Then there's the town's beach bathrooms, which were added in 2022, which weren't in the original footprint. And again, I understand that, but then there's also 3 other properties that weren't and aren't currently serviced by West Neck Water. So there's, if you take out the town beach bathrooms and the corner of the property where the current wells 5 and 6 are, you have 5 residential properties that currently are not being serviced by West Neck Water that are being shown as part of West Neck Water District. And some of those properties are developed and some of them are not. And, you know, I just hope that the people that came before you, including the guests that you saw in July that you mentioned in today's earlier meeting, that person is having potable well problems, that those people take priority over new customers or vacant lots that don't even have structures on them yet. I don't understand why that those are included are being shown as West Neck Water customers when they currently are not.
I think, Lori, that this is something, since it's now Suffolk County Water Authority that is in discussion with the DEC, I really think that these questions have to be directed to Joe Picorni. You know, if you want to write him a letter and ask him these questions, if I had known that you had things pertaining to this earlier, I would have given you the opportunity to speak with him directly. But I think that this really is something that only Joe can answer, because they are the agency. Those 2 agencies are now, those are the agency that's talking to the DEC, and they're the ones who drew up the map.
Lori, I can tell you that a lot of the district footprint changes were made to be compliant because the existing footprint was inaccurate and in conflict with other documents for the system. So, like you mentioned, a number of those changes, and I'm speaking, you know, really just generally from memory on the application because it was, I think, about 8 months ago that this was submitted. Changes like including the golf course and the new extension to the bathroom, those were done because they previously weren't in the footprint of the system. The wells on the golf course, for instance, you know, were part of the system but not included in the map. So that was a correction. I'm not familiar off the top of my head with which lots you're referencing, you know, that are not currently served. But I can tell you that the district map doesn't necessarily doesn't mean that every parcel is served. It's just representative of where the service extensions can go. So, I mean, I may be not fully answering your questions, Lori. I'm not familiar exactly with which parcels you're talking about, but a property can be in the district footprint, but not physically connected to the system. So that's not necessarily problematic. It doesn't mean that this isn't an error necessarily. I don't think that it is.
Well,
But that's not the.
But Joe, I have to say, I think I disagree with you to a certain extent, because if you look at the conditions of the DEC permit, it specifically says that there's no expansion allowed, not only outside of the district, but to anybody that's not currently being serviced. So, you know, they give a very long list of conditions when they issue permits.
Yes, and you know that's further complicated by the fact that Suffolk Water is operating this, and by default, they are the opposite of the district. So anywhere our district boundary ends, the next step across the street, that is Suffolk Water District. So we've had a number of conversations about how to handle that particular situation. The Crescent Beach bathroom extension was one of those specifically. We installed the line down Shore Road. The town took ownership of it, but there was this complication of how we would treat that. Is that going to be a boundary change of West Neck water, or is that going to be a transmission of water from West Neck into this little strip that would be Suffolk Water? So some of those things are still being worked out. And Lori, to your point, we can look into all of those properties, and it's good practice to make sure that those things are tidy. Just generally speaking, I feel quite confident in the application. Certainly, the fact that we're nearing the finish point with the DEC means that they're comfortable with it as well. So, I'm hopeful that this is all tidied up, but we can definitely take a look.
And I think it's a matter of governance. It's a matter of Suffolk County Water Authority being the governing agency that's doing this, and they're going to be the ones who will receive the pushback from the DEC if anything is in error.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So
And they
we are
prepared the
not,
application.
West Neck Water is not culpable in any of this.
Well, I just, Lisa, my biggest concern is, I certainly don't want to delay, the permit in any way, but my biggest concern is that the customers, as you mentioned, are in some desperate issues because they don't have potable water, that those people that are currently not in the district or being serviced by West Neck Water are, at a higher priority level than somebody who just accidentally or inadvertently got stuck on a map by a mistake or a government's issue, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, well, I think you can look at the map that she's referring to. I think check that out, but
Yeah.
also the fact that we're going to be able to service people outside of the district with the new wells sort of abates the future concern that we can't supply water to other customers.
Well, that's the other thing, Lisa, that you'll have to look at the conditions of the DEC permit because it says that there's no expansion outside of the district on the DEC permit for the existing new wells that are going in without their approval. So, before anyone can be added, somehow that needs to get worked out because it says no expansion is allowed. So anyway, you'll need to look at all the conditions on that permit to understand that. The next question that I had is actually not a question, but the lab tests in your talk about pharmaceuticals in this particular ibuprofen today. 6 years ago, I did a study that I presented about looking at septic systems around public, our particular West Neck Water public wells, and that somehow that those, the records of those septic systems, and if they were even Suffolk County Health Department standard or below standard, the town didn't have any records of those surrounding properties, and suggested that those septic systems be put on a priority level to promote, those property owners to be upgrading their septic systems. And it didn't go anywhere. However, when I was asked by the supervisor to help kick off the WQI committee and support them, they did put, their evaluations criteria to promote septic upgrades around public well systems. And I brought that up again to the comp plan committee about 1.5 years ago, and I think that they have something written in their draft about that as well. So I'm glad to see that discussion continue because I do think that many things should be looked at in terms of wellhead protection. Not just for private wells, but really importantly for public well systems.
Right.
The next question I have is, is actually probably an Amber question, and it's about the grant money. You know, the original agreement between Suffolk County Water Authority and the town talked about, had exhibits attached to it. And there was an exhibit with the upgrades, the cost of the upgrades of what would be included in that 1.7 million. And at that time, as we all know, it was just well number 7, or one well, shall we call it, new well on the golf course. Now we're doing 2 new wells on the golf course. Now the agreement says that anything above and beyond the that exhibit that was in that agreement is to be paid for by Suffolk County Water Authority. So the question that I have is then how does that work with the $500,000 grant money? Because technically that grant money was given for well upgrades. However, one of those well upgrades was in the original 1.7 and the other one was not. So if the West Neck Water customers are meant to be paying for one of those wells and Suffolk County Water Authority is meant to be paying for the other well, how does that $500,000 get applied, and does West Neck Water get the credit for the second well that's to be paid for by Suffolk County Water? Am I making sense on that?
Yes, yes, and when I heard Joe say that today, and the upgrades to wells 5A and 6A were covered by the 500,000, they have got to, at some point when they've finished everything, submit to us a bill to show how they've spent the 1.7 million. So I will be paying close attention to that, because his first comment that we should have done more homework makes me think that that's on them. And so the 500,000 is towards the rest of it. So when we get that final invoice from them on all of the upgrade work, we'll be looking at that very carefully and going back to our agreement to negotiate what should be covered and should not be covered.
Because he inferred that we were getting now 2 wells instead of 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we will have to take a look at how that cost breakdown, but
Right.
yes, I noted that too.
Well, so yeah, so it's the cost of the second well as well as the whatever shall we call it, miscellaneous construction that goes with that, because if you're putting in 2 new wells with a higher pumpage system, your electrical service, of course, is going to be different than if you were just putting in 1 well. So there'll be electrical upgrade costs associated with a second well that would be different than if it was for just 1 well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll be going over that with a fine tooth comb when the time comes.
Yeah. Lori, I hate to cut you off, but it is 4:30, so can you succinctly?
3:30.
Oh, 3:30.
We started.
Having a meeting.
We started at 2. Yeah. So can you wrap it up here?
Yeah, that's all the questions that I have for today. I may have more, but I would find it really helpful if you could also talk about consolidating records, is one of the other struggles I have, and trying to read reports and lab reports and look at data, is the town clerk is constantly telling me they don't have this material.
What do you
So-
mean by consolidating?
Well, for example, Joe said he had some stuff, and you said today you had some stuff. I just want to make sure that the town clerk is getting all these things. And whether, the town clerk seems to think that they haven't received anything on West Neck Water. So, whatever should be stored in the town clerk's files.
Do you want to see this accessible or filed?
I don't know what you mean by that, Lisa.
Well, in other words, do you want to see these records at the West Neck Water District site so you can access it from home, or do you want to see something in the files?
How you do it is up to you, and just making sure that the public has access to these records somehow, whether it's through a FOIL or on the town website or, wherever these things are, because, I'm struggling getting the materials that I'm looking for. And I think maybe part of that might be, and I'm just guessing, that those things are stored in different places.
Right, and also now, the Suffolk County Water Authority has its own storage mechanism. So some of the information that you might be looking for will be with them.
Right, but they have a management agreement with the town, so I think the town needs to decide what they're required to store and what they want to store, maybe two different things. And what they don't want to, but when somebody is looking for materials, it shouldn't be up to that person to, it should be up to the town to be able to provide that. Right now, everybody's pointing fingers at everybody in terms of when I'm chasing records around. I FOIL the county sends me to Suffolk County Water Authority. I FOIL the town sends me to Suffolk County Water Authority or to Suffolk County Health Department. So I'm running around having to FOIL 3 different entities, and no one seems to have the records.
It might be helpful if you were to make a list of the information that you're looking for.
I did. The town has it all.
Okay, then we'll look at that list. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Good points. Anybody else have any comments or concerns or considerations?
So, a clarification question, really.
And then we have another Zoom question.
Oh, sorry, me again. So the bathrooms down at Crescent Beach are the water supplied by West Neck. Who pays for that water?
The town does.
So there's a bill to the town for it.
We bill ourselves, yeah. It's metered for use of the bathroom, and then the town itself exists as a customer, and we pay the bill.
It actually gets billed by Suffolk County Water Authority. So we're part of the Western, Water District billing. I signed that check the other day. So,
Got it. Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, Pam, you have a question?
Yeah, I'll just make this quick, very quick question. I mean, it's interesting to say that perhaps the new wells are going under a new map for the boundaries of the district, but the lease agreement with the town showed the boundaries of the district. So I'm kind of echoing Lori's concern about what are these extra properties that may become part of the district because Suffolk County Water Authority thought it was a good idea. I mean, they are just leasing. I don't really feel that they're the governing agency here. The town is still the governing agency. The town still owns the district. So, perhaps that's worth clarifying. I mean, obviously, folks in West Neck Water need clean water. I mean, there's no question potable water is an issue in that neighborhood. And I just wanted to echo what Lori said. There are folks in West Neck Water that are not getting potable water, and they should be first priority list to any connections to the mains that have now been put in.
Well,
And I'm
just
happy to hear that all the meters are done, and all of that. I think that's great. And I'm just wondering, have you done an inventory on any irrigation wells that still exist within the district that should be decommissioned?
To answer your first question, there are no parcels, customers in the West Neck Water District that have non-potable water. Everybody who's in the district has potable water. So what we're talking about is one person who made application to become a member of the district 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. And at the time, we could not connect this residence because we didn't have enough water on paper. We didn't have enough water to connect them. So
I see.
they are the first connection that we will make when the new well goes online. There is also an application from someone else that wants to become a part of the district. And that application is on file, but they can't become a member of the district until we have the well put in. I'm not sure because I don't have that map in front of me, what those parcels are that Lori was referring to that shouldn't be in the district. I'm not sure about that. I know that there was an outline of the line that goes from Stearns Point Road down to Sunset Beach, and it included on paper that whole parcel, if you will, when it's actually just an easement. So
Okay.
on paper, it may look like it's a parcel, but it's not. It's an easement. So that may be just a matter of redefining how they outline that particular parcel. But again, I
Okay, yes,
can't
I
answer.
understand that. Yeah, because I did notice that as well, and I thought, oh, that's a little strange. I didn't think that was part of the district. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. That explains that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, you working forward with the DEC and getting everything straightened out appropriately and getting proper water supply to the neighborhood. 'Cause
And
we know that
to further Lisa's point, some of those boundary modifications were to incorporate system infrastructure where it already existed, didn't necessarily mean that there was a service connection there.
Right.
The wells on the golf course are a good example that district boundary is modified to include that, not because anybody on the golf course uses water, but because there was equipment and infrastructure that was part of the system, and now that's represented as being inside the footprint. And I guess it sounds like there's maybe 2 or 3 cases like that. The
Yeah, I don't know.
service
Without
line to
looking
the-
at the map, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
answer to it.
Yeah, the service line to Sunset Beach is another great example.
Yeah.
There's no property there being
There's no
serviced,
property.
but the line goes through it, so the footprint represents that parcel, just like the Shore Road extension to the back.
And you
Okay,
had
very good. Thanks very much.
did you have a second question there, Pam?
No, that was all. I think it sounds like Mr. Portnoy is gonna figure out how to get the reports back and easier to be read by residents and stuff like that, and consolidate that and fix the website so that you can find the reports. I think you covered a lot of very good information today, and I
Okay.
appreciate it. I know it's been a long meeting, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, would anybody like to move
I
to?
so move.
That's quick.
I second.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Ben,
everybody.
and-
Thank you, Lisa, really. And Joe.
It was good to meet you, Ben.